You are listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. I'm Kyle Bryant.
And I'm Sean Baumsart. Together, we're navigating life with disability. What's happening? Welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This is episode 33. Kyle, are you there?
Episode 33. Let's do this, Sean.
What's happening, man? How are you today?
Doing good. I'm hanging in there. It's cold out here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's what it's what I keep reading. I mean, it's cold here, too, in California, but our cold is completely different than your cold.
Yeah, like 30 degrees different.
Well, hey, like Kyle said, let's do this. So today we want to talk about the funky moods we all get into and maybe share with you some steps we believe can help lead to funk busting. In other words, purposeful ways to get out of that funky or negative mood that you might find yourself in. However, before we get into all of that stuff, we actually want to talk about an app that Kyle loves, so we're going to do a little app review for you. Kyle, what app do you have on mind?
Is an app that we talked about, or I told a story about several episodes ago, and I've used it. It's a grocery delivery app called Instacart, and you can order groceries from a local store and get them delivered within like 2 hours. Or you can schedule a delivery for tomorrow or whenever you want. So, Sean, when you and I were in Denver, as many of our listeners know, we went to Denver to kind of do a planning session for 2018. And we got in after a little bit of a Uber delay getting there, a little navigation error. We got in at like 9 p.m. or something, and so on the way there in the car, I ordered Instacart and had it delivered for the next morning at like, I don't know, 8:30 or 9 o'clock or something like that. It was really awesome. The one thing that happened with this order specifically was that they didn't have the hazelnut cream that you want, and you were pissed, man.
I was quite frustrated. I mean, part of the reason why I said it's an app that Kyle loves is because I've only used it once, or my experience has only been one. And right now, it's not the best.
That was like the only item that you even wanted.
Wait, wasn't there two things that weren't right?
Maybe.
There were two things. So the cream was not the right cream, but there was something else.
Well, anyway, so the way this app works is that you order on the app. And you order from a local store. So the store that you're used shopping in, you order from there. And prices, that's the one. The main bad thing is prices are a little more expensive. So if you're looking to save money, probably you shouldn't do this app.
Just go to the store yourself.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, it's really awesome, like late at night or when I'm coming home from work and I really just can't move. I order Instacart, or like yesterday, it was freaking 5 degrees outside and I was not about to go to the store, so I just order Instacart. It costs a little more, but hey, all I have to do is sit around and wait for it to come. So,
yeah, and while you're sitting around, you can get caught up on your chores or whatever you got to do at home. You don't have to spend time or effort in running around town or getting in and out of the car, which can be hard for people that have mobility challenges.
Exactly. And so, like, my apartment was not very clean when yesterday, but during my Instacart, while my groceries were getting delivered, I was cleaning my apartment. So, yeah. So,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, there is one thing. I'm thinking about the the mistakes or kind of the letdown of our particular or my first experience with Instacart, I'm actually reminded what I thought to be a huge pitfall of the app was, our individual person went into the store that we selected and they went shopping with the list that we submitted. However, the store didn't have the hazelnut creamer that I wanted, and there was something, I can't remember what, but there was something else that was either a different flavor or maybe a different something. And they didn't have it. So I'm like, well, that's silly. They just chose whatever they thought would be the next best thing. Like, that is so dumb. Why make me pay for a creamer I don't want? Just skip that.
No.
Well, what I discovered about the app was they actually send you a notice. Like, hey, that's not in stock right now, or that's not available. What do you want to do? Which I'm like, oh, that's really cool. However, in my case, they sent that notice to Kyle, and Kyle completely ignored his phone. Like, didn't even try to help me get the creamer I wanted. He just totally left me hanging.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess creamer is not high on my priority list, dude.
Well, at first, I'm like, this is so dumb. Why would the app just do whatever they want? And then Kyle confessed, oh, no, they sent me a notice an hour ago, and I just didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. So,
thanks, Kyle.
That's a good
True
point,
friend.
though. The app's pretty cool because while the person is shopping personally for all your stuff, you can put notes like, hey, I want to eat this avocado in 2 days, so don't get it too ripe or whatever. You can put all those notes in, and then while they're shopping, it gives you, it like updates you like, this person found this. They have all these items, and they replaced this with that because it wasn't there. And you can text the person through the app any notes you want, and then yeah. So it's worked out for me really well when I'm not worried about saving money and I'm just worried about saving time. It's definitely a good thing.
So, lesson learned for me, it's a great app as long as I'm in charge.
Yes, next time Sean will order the groceries.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. Instacart is what the app's all about, so feel free to check it out. And by the way, that was just something we liked, or Kyle loves. We are not sponsored whatsoever.
We wouldn't mind
by
it,
them.
though.
Yeah, if anybody knows them, I mean, feel free to, reach out.
Yep. All right, so Sean, let's jump into this episode here. So one of our listeners recently pointed us towards an episode of Freakonomics Radio, and it's a podcast, and they pointed us to a particular episode called "Why Is My Life So Hard?" And Sean and I listened to it, and really the idea is that we all tend to have a bias towards focusing on the negative things that happen to us rather than the positive things that help us along in life. And I think that's kind of a recurring theme, right, that we have. And the idea is that it makes sense that we don't really have to think about the positive things that help us along, because all the negative things that are, quote, standing in our way, we have to think about strategies and actions to take to get over and around those obstacles. And then we don't even think about the things that are just pushing us along. So in this episode, they talked about headwinds and tailwinds. And so we don't think about the tailwinds, and all we focus on the headwinds, and we remember those.
Yeah, one of the correlations he made, or examples, in this particular episode, the host was interviewing two psychologists, and one of the guys talked about the paper they published is called tailwinds and headwinds asymmetry or something of that effect. Anyway, one of the psychologists talks about how he related it to running or cycling. And when we're running or cycling, or we're kind of outside exercising, if we're moving against the wind, we know it, we can feel it, and it's frustrating, and it kind of slows us down and causes some drag. And we know we're constantly aware of it the whole time we're pushing against it. But it talks about as soon as that wind is to our back and it's helping push us along, we tend to only recognize it for a few moments. But then we adjust and we get used to it, and it's just there, and we forget how powerful and helpful it is.
And I think that line of thought really, I had never really thought about that before, but I thought it was, really concrete and applicable. I also don't want to totally contradict the idea, but in cycling, I notice a tailwind. So, oh my gosh, it's the most amazing, magical feeling in the world when you're directly in line with a tailwind that's blowing like 20, 30 miles an hour. Holy cow. It's like you're in a bubble. It's just magic. It's almost like a different world. Like everything is quiet in there. All you can hear is the click of your chain, and like, oh my gosh. And it just, you're hardly working and moving along like 20 miles an hour. Yeah.
Would you say that you're pretty good at recognizing it the entire time? Like if you're going downhill, well, I guess downhill isn't really fair, but if you're going with the wind for say 5 miles, are you actively and presently aware of the entire 5 miles, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Kind of to their kind of to his thought was, or their research and their findings were. After a few moments or a mile, we kind of adjust, and we fail to realize we're still benefiting from the good thing or from that tailwind.
Yeah, no, I agree with that in the respect of like things that happen in our lives. But when I'm cycling and I have a tailwind,
it's all on.
All I'm thinking is, I hope the road doesn't turn because I want to ride this as far as possible.
That's awesome. The whole point of this particular episode is to kind of give steps to busting our funky moods, ultimately getting rid of that negativity or that defeatist kind of mindset. So what Kyle and I want to share are what we believe are 3 ways that can actively bust your funk. And of course, number 1, I believe we got to be thankful. And to an extent, it's really being thankful is all about being aware and being reflective. Just that alone, like Kyle, you make a comment in the film that we're both a part of, just thinking about the cause helps move the cause forward.
Yeah.
And I think in this regard, just thinking about the good things in your life or what you're thankful for or what you're benefiting from, just simply taking an active approach to recognize the good things in life and being reflective on those things can help you bust your funk.
Yeah, I agree. It's all about recognizing that tailwind, right?
Exactly.
And recognizing the things that push us along.
So one of the things that I've started this year is, to help make 2018 my year is a particular routine that I've been doing for the last couple of weeks is actually every single morning, and this was inspired by another psychologist that I heard on a different podcast. He talked about spending 10 minutes every day in the morning just with your own thoughts. So away from any devices, your phones, computer, TV, so on and so forth, and just reflect on what you want to accomplish that day, or maybe reflect on what's going on in your life right now. And really, he talked about utilizing the 10, 15, 20, whatever time frame you give yourself, using that time to ask yourself, what is most important for me to accomplish today? And then the idea is that you go into your day and you start your day realizing what's most important, so that you can take an active approach to complete those things or tackle those things, so that come the end of your day, you feel accomplished and you feel productive. Too often, the downside of life and our devices is that we get derailed and easily pulled a million different ways, and thus we don't actually do what's important to us, or complete or accomplish what we set out to accomplish that day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think for me, oftentimes I'm just like, all right, let's get through this day. Not proactively being like, what do I want to get out of it? And being super reactive to just what needs to get done, instead of deciding what you want. So I think that's a big part of it.
So with that, I've been waking up a little bit earlier every morning. Put my phone down, I go into another room, and I literally just sit at my table with a cup of coffee, and I just think about what's important to me today. And actually, I've been writing at least 2 things that I'm grateful for. So I write down some stuff that I'm thankful for, so that reflection part, which we'll get to more of that in a moment. But I also review my values and who and what I want to be, which has also been inspired by some different books and people that we've had on their shows, such as Drew Dudley. And we talked recently about Mark Manson's book with Heidi that came up. So anyway, I actually sit down and reflect on a lot of things, not just what I'm thankful for. And we'll keep going and we'll get into that.
That's awesome. Yeah, congratulations. So how many days in a row have you done this, Sean?
I would say a pretty solid 12 to 13 days.
Nice, man. That's pretty good, right? Isn't it 13 days until a habit forms or something like that?
I think it's like 21.
Oh, okay. Well,
but hey, close.
You know what I think it actually is? It's a habit until you break that habit, right?
So that's true. Yeah,
maybe it's
exactly.
Like 55, and then yeah.
Yep. But you know what? Even though I haven't hit exactly every single day this year, hitting 12 or 13 is still more than I have ever done in my life.
Nice.
I mean, think about it that way. Like, I'm still making small steps of self-improvement, if you will, or purposeful, intentional living, if you will.
Dude, so every single day that you get up, if you do it in a row, you're setting a record for yourself, like every single day.
Yeah, that's true.
Awesome. So number 1 is to recognize gratitude and recognize what you're thankful for. What's number 2, Sean?
You've got to write it down. So like I mentioned, a part of my new routine lately has been I sit and think about what I'm thankful for, but then I also take time to write it down. You've got to express that gratitude, and I think you and I were talking a little while ago. I think writing it down just helps validate it and solidify what you're thankful for.
Yeah, I think writing anything down is valuable, right? Like if I had maybe this wouldn't be very good, but I was gonna say if I had a transcript of like every thought I've ever had, you could pick out
inappropriate.
But you could remember all those ideas that you have, and you're like, oh, I need to remember this in like 10 minutes, and then 10 minutes later, oh, nope, done.
everybody will tell you, if you have goals, you've got to write them down. If you have ideas, you've got to write them down. I think that applies in Hollywood. A lot of movies and stories that come out of Hollywood are because somebody had an idea and they wrote it down.
Yep.
And then they developed it over time, and boom, they're producing $100 million movie or whatever. So I think it's right on, and it's nothing new, but a lot of us struggle with actually taking the time to physically, literally write it down.
Yep. All right, that's number 2 is write it down. Sean, what is number 3?
Number 3, you've got to take action. And what I love about this one are some of the things Kyle has said, so I'm going to kick it back to you, Kyle. What does it mean? Number 1, we got to be thankful, so think about it, be aware of it, reflect on it. Number 2, you got to write those things down. And then number 3, what does take action mean?
The action that we want to talk about, telling other people that we appreciate them. A lot of times taking action means letting someone else know what's in your head, so that it positively affects them. I think that is a big way to take action. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I agree. And I think what we tend to do, I feel like what might be more natural for most of us is we take action in respect to the negative things that are happening in life. So the action in this regard might be to sit around with somebody or loved ones and moan and complain and be all depressed and just negative about where we're at in life or what our struggles are, which I get it. Those things, we got to respect the struggle to an extent, but too often we take action in regard of letting the bad stuff brew and hang out way too long. And I think what you and I want to talk about in number 3, we want to take action that purposefully and intentionally help negate or get rid of and diminish the funk in our lives. So for us, taking action means, of course, actively writing it down, but also actively expressing it with others. So maybe if you're thankful for something someone has done, say thank you. Go give them a high five. Actually hand them a thank you note. Show them some sort of expression of your gratitude.
The reason I think gratitude is important is, the main reason to me is that if you're feeling low and down and in a funk, it's not hard to see that expressing gratitude can break you out of that funk. It's almost impossible to have a negative attitude if you're grateful for something, right? And that's something that we can actively do. Write stuff down that we're grateful for. Change our thinking in the moment. Think about things that we're grateful for. And honestly, it's almost impossible, if we think about it, to be negative if you're expressing and thinking about gratitude.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of a TEDx talk that I watched and really like, and I feel like I may have mentioned it before, but I would encourage our listeners to go check it out. TEDx, or just go to YouTube and search for Allison Ledgerwood's TEDx talk or is titled Getting Stuck in the Negatives and How to Get Unstuck. And she talks about how our minds are naturally wired to linger on the rough or the bad or the challenging things in life. And she went through an exercise with her husband where the reflection of her day, when she would get home from work or the office or whatever, her and her husband would actually spend time talking about the good things that happened. It's so easy for us to talk about all the garbage that came up throughout the day, but instead they were intentional about, okay, what are the 3 things or 2 things or 5 things or whatever that you appreciate about the day.
Sean and I wanted to share a couple of tangible ways that we think are good strategies to express gratitude, and kind of fun things to do too. And so some of you that might follow Sean or me on Instagram, you see these pictures of like candy or chocolate, like in the airport most of the time, sometimes at the train station. And then we hashtag it with "Don't forget the crew." So Sean, what can you explain what that is?
A flight attendant friend of mine told me a story about how a passenger on her flight had gotten on the plane and gave them some chocolate just to say, hey, thanks for all you do. Here's some chocolate for the flight. Let's have a good flight. So that's one thing I thought, oh, that's cool. I've never really, maybe it's weird. I've never thought about doing that. You know, you just assume while you're getting on the plane, it's their job to, you know, serve you soda and peanuts and whatever else you want on the plane, right? But then I also was listening to a podcast, and I completely forget who the person was, but this guy had written a book, and he had talked about how when he gets on planes, he might, you know, I guess in a way it's self-promoting, but he would give a copy of his book, but he would also give a $5 Starbucks card to every flight attendant, and it was just a way to say thank you. And of course, in a way, he was kind of growing his own reach and brand, but it was cool. He wouldn't need to or have to include a $5 Starbucks card, but I've heard about that, and then of course my friend talked about different little ways that make her day, so I started to do something like that myself. I would get a bag of candy or chocolate, and before or as I get on the plane, I would hand it over to the main flight attendant or the first person on the plane, and I would just simply say, here, this is for you and the crew. Thank you for what you do. Let's have a safe flight. And that was it. It was just, and of course they would look at you like, what? Who are you? This is not normal. Why are you giving me chocolate? And I began to realize and experience a lot of fun in just giving gifts.
You've told me a few stories about what has happened. You know, some of the fun that you've had from this. Tell us about those stories.
So I've been, like I said, I've been doing this for a couple years now, but I haven't been, you know, sharing about it online as much as maybe I am now. We just recently launched this idea in the Instagram of Don't Forget the Crew, and, you know, we want to kind of do a pay it forward sort of movement. So one of the things that I realized in doing so, when you express a gift like that, or you express your gratitude in a tangible gift form, people tend to maybe want to give something back. So one of my first experiences, I got on the plane and I gave my chocolate or whatever it was. It tends to be chocolate more often than not. So I gave my bag of chocolate to the crew, and I was just like, hey, this is for you guys. Let's have a good flight. Thanks for all you do. And they were all kind of, there was 2 or 3 of them in a group, and they were like, oh, wait, what? What's this for? And one of the guys said, oh, I love chocolate. Thank you so much. And I'm like, yeah, cool. I love peanuts. You know, in the back of my head thinking maybe they'll give me a couple extra peanuts, right? That was all. It was just kind of a silly joke. Well, a few moments later, after I sat down in my seat, the flight attendant came with the entire bag of pre-packaged peanuts. So literally gave me an entire bag of their airline's peanuts.
Like I probably had 200 little things.
At least maybe even just 100 or more of those individually wrapped peanuts, and you just kind of threw it my way, and we all laughed, and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? He's like, no, thank you so much. I'm like, oh my gosh. So of course now I have all these peanuts. I didn't want that many. I don't know what to do with them, so I began asking the passengers in my area, peanuts, peanuts, do you want peanuts?
And everyone was your best friend, huh? Because who doesn't like peanuts?
Well, a couple people. Some people looked at me like, why do you have those? Because not everybody saw the exchange. You know, we weren't all on the plane yet.
That is funny. There was another story that you told me that really stuck in my head about getting free drinks, and that was that was something that I sort of, when I first did my first Don't Forget the Crew, I was like, sweet, I'm gonna get so many free drinks. And then I gave him the thing, and I was like kind of rushed, whatever. I was a little bit late to the plane, and everybody was just kind of busy and no recognition at all. And
like there was no validation of your gift?
Yeah, like they were rude, but I was expecting like fireworks or something. And I think that's an important aspect of this, right? The point is that you're giving them a gift, like no expectation, no strings attached at all.
Yeah.
And so and you told me that. You said no strings attached before, and I was like, all right. Like, I went in thinking one thing, it wasn't that, but then I remember what you said, and I was like, okay, so I kept doing it. And the last 2 times, they come by my seat, and they're like, so, do you want a drink? Like,
wink, wink.
Yeah, wink, wink, nod, and so that's been kind of fun, to get the recognition, and also they've, everyone. I'll give it to a flight attendant, like at the front of the plane, and she'll yell back to the back, like, check out what this guy just gave us.
Yeah, I love it. They always refer to you as your seat number.
Yeah.
Oh, look what 12F just did, or whatever.
Yeah, so it's been fun. I also gave one to my Amtrak guy that helped me on my train, and I also gave some my cleaners that do my shirt laundry each week. Nice. Are so awesome. I had this shirt that I was like, I was about to get rid of it because it was missing 2 buttons. Like, that's probably not a very good reason to get rid of a shirt, right?
But if you don't sew,
right,
then that's a great reason.
Yeah. So I, for whatever reason, it ended up in the laundry. So I sent it there, and I got it back, and I took it out, and I was like, what? There's 2 buttons put back on the shirt. It was like the most amazing thing. And anyway, so.
And they didn't tell you?
No, they didn't tell me.
That's amazing.
They probably do it all the time, right? So this year I gave them a little treat, like when I went and got my laundry right before Christmas, so.
That's huge. I think part of the fun in giving is that you don't expect anything back. So I think it's huge. Your dry cleaner just did it without pointing it out and expecting you to pay a little extra or anything like that. They just made your day by doing something kind and not bringing it up or not promoting it or expecting anything in return. And that's really what Don't Forget the Crew is all about. Although, I will tell you, like we're talking about, Kyle, we both have benefited from nice or fun return gifts as well.
Yeah,
in fact,
what happened to you?
One of the best experiences actually was fairly recently. Sometimes, like we've alluded to, somebody might give you a free drink or a million peanuts or whatever it might be. But again, the idea is to go on the plane and give your gift first, so no strings attached. It's not about giving you a gift at the end because I had a good experience. It's about giving your gift up front because they deserve it. They're there to serve, and that who knows how many flights they've had that day where they've been berated or it's been a hard day. So again, give your gift up front. Who cares what happens after that? That's not what it's about. However, every now and then, you might get something in return. So again, fairly recently. I'm on a flight. I get on. I give my gift, and we take a little selfie. The girls or the ladies are super fun and sweet about it, and they're like, "Oh, where are you sitting?" And I make it a habit of never saying exactly where I'm sitting. If they want to know, I'm sure it's really easy to figure it out. So I say something like, "Oh, I'm all the way in the back," or I don't know, somewhere in the middle. So I go to my seat, I settle in. Once we get the service going, the girl comes and finds me, and she's like, "Oh, sir, something for you." And I'm like, "Oh, So I ordered a glass of wine, and she came and brought it to me, and I had pulled out my credit card, and she was like, "Oh, hold on, I'll be right back for that." Well, she never came back. So, awesome. But I mean, she did eventually, and I still had my card out, and she gave me a cup of water and a napkin, and she kind of like looked at me like, "No," and she kind of like shook her head, and so I'm like, "Okay, whatever." I put my card away. Well, I get into writing some stuff on my computer, and 5 minutes later, she comes up with a second glass of wine, and she literally says, "Oh, sir, your friend in the back wanted to buy this for you." And she kind of winked at me, and I'm like, "I don't have any friends on this plane." Like, what do you mean? But I think it was their way of expressing gratitude without letting the whole plane know they were kind of being a little extra nice. And so it was just kind of funny, and it struck me as odd because, like, again, I didn't have any friends in the back, but they were certainly going out of their way to express some appreciation for me as well. And in fact, before we landed, she came back. I enjoyed both cups of wine or glasses of wine. And when they were ending service because we're going into our final descent, and she came back and was like, "Oh, sir, your friend in the back wanted to make sure you didn't want anything else before he closes his tab." And I'm like, "Yep, nope, I'm good. Tell him I said thanks." And it was just, awesome. It made me feel like $1 million. And when you think about it, it all stemmed from just an expression of gratitude in a simple $5 bag of chocolates.
Yep.
Like, how amazing is that?
Yeah, that's really awesome. So, we really encourage people to give it a try to see what happens. I think you'll enjoy it. And so, Sean, how do people do it? Like, what are the steps involved in doing this?
Super easy. First of all, if you want to look at more, read more, you can visit don'tforgetthecrew.com. And we talk about the flight crews, but you also mentioned Amtrak. The whole thing was inspired by flight crews, but the idea is to express gratitude to anybody in the service world. So whether it's your Uber driver or Amtrak guy or local bakery or whatever it may be. So the idea is you plan ahead or think ahead. You go to the store, you buy a treat, and then you go to your dry cleaners, or you get on that plane, or you visit whatever it is, and you just say, "Hey, I appreciate all you do. Here's a Snickers bar, or here's some Ghirardelli chocolate," or whatever it is. So step 1, buy a treat. Step 2, give the treat. Step 3, simply take a picture of you or your treat and share it on Instagram by tagging Don't Forget the Crew.
So we're watching for our listeners to post these to Instagram or Twitter or whatever you want, and we're following that hashtag. So we'd love to see you guys join in.
Yeah, anybody can do it. It's not owned by me or Kyle. It's just an idea, a platform to express gratitude and to get in the world of gift giving. I know we're all thankful for that dry cleaner or that florist or that barber or whatever we use, but we're not really good at expressing it. You know, like we said, we're not really good at maybe taking action. And one of my favorite quotes has been a quote that I've loved for years. It's an anonymous author, but it goes like this: feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a gift and never giving it.
Yeah.
How pointless is that? So the idea here is to just heighten our awareness of the people that make life better for us, or maybe, serve us and make us comfortable or bring us peanuts, and express gratitude for those things.
Nice.
In fact, I'm sorry, one last story.
Yeah.
The challenging side of it. I made a commitment when I first started doing the gifts. I told myself, okay, every plane I get on this year, I'm going to give a gift. And I executed that particular year. It was 2016. And sometimes I forgot to plan ahead, so I didn't get to buy my goodies at Target or Walmart. I ended up having to buy my goodies at the airport, which, as you know, are way overpriced. But it was a commitment I made that I wasn't going to get on a plane without some sort of gift. So I spent too much money, but I made it happen. I was committed to executing that gift. Well, last year, 2017, I kind of gave up a little bit on my commitment. The commitment was every plane, no matter what. And last year, I had some rough flights and some rough encounters before getting on the plane. So I was selfish. I chose to keep my chocolate because I didn't like the service I received at the counter. And to an extent, I don't really think that was fair of me. So this year, I've committed no matter what my experience or my ticketing or my security or whatever the experience is first, if I have a gift, I'm giving it no matter what. And just recently, I got on Amtrak, and I didn't really appreciate the encounter I had with the engineer, the ticket agent that, goes around and makes sure you're supposed to be on that train and you have a ticket. But after our encounter that wasn't 100% positive, when she came back around and I was checking tickets, I still said, you know what? I appreciate our dialogue, and I know that it wasn't the best, but here's some chocolate anyway, because I made it a habit of every time I get on a plane or a train, I appreciate overall who you are and what you do. So here you go. Thank you, and let's have a good train ride, which for me was kind of hard because I kind of wasn't too excited about the service I'd received, but to me, that doesn't mean she doesn't deserve a little extra.
Nice. So how'd that turn out? Like, what was the result of that?
I think she kind of looked at me like, "Are you poisoning me?" But she still said, "Oh, wow, okay, thank you." She was still very kosher and said thank you and moved on. But for me, it was a turning point to realize, no matter what happens, I should still be thankful, and I should still express gratitude. Somebody being mean to me or cutting me off in traffic doesn't give me, or shouldn't give me, the right, quote unquote, to be mean back or to cut them off back, or whatever else the thought might be.
Right, that's something that we learn like in preschool, right? But we totally, everyone, I think we carry it through to, all our interactions. And if we can, sort of short circuit the spiral of negativity back and forth, like that might help some situations moving forward.
I think that's a good point. So much of this we learn in preschool, but we disregard as adults, and we justify in our own minds. And I think it's that justification that we need to be aware of and really be honest with ourselves. Is it really okay to do that because of it or not? So I'm glad you You mentioned preschool. 'Cause none of this is new. None of what we're talking about is new stuff. It's all principles that have been a part of life forever. We just tend to forget about them or not actually intentionally put them to work.
I agree. So, Sean, one other thing that I want to do for this episode, for our episode on gratitude, as we're thinking about ways to bust funk in our lives, Sean, I want to introduce a Two Disabled Dudes challenge. So, I think it would be cool if every single day for the next month, we wrote at least one thank you card. One thank you card a day for a month. What do you think?
Oh, jeez. Well, I agree that it'd be cool, but one card a day? That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, like how many have you? I don't know if I've written 30 thank you notes in my entire life. Like my mom used to make me do one when I was young to like my grandma for my birthday gift or whatever. But so yeah, I think it's gonna be a lot of work. Well, relatively, but I don't know. Hopefully, once we fall into the groove, it might get easier.
Yeah, so I accept. I'm down. I'll do it. So give me some details. How do you picture this challenge working? What's acceptable? What's not acceptable? How's this gonna work?
Well, first of all, you have to have thank you cards, right? Shoot, you could write it on a piece of paper. But
True.
First step, I think it kind of follows the steps we talked about earlier, right? The first step would be to reflect, like, who are you grateful for? And do they have a physical address? So you think about who you're grateful for, what you're grateful for them for, and then you find their address, right? And then you write it down. You write down why you're thankful for that person, and then you take action, right? You find a stamp. You stick it on there, and then you throw it in the mail. Are you going to be able to do all this stuff?
I think I can handle it. Right. Do I have to do one every day, or can I like sit down on my day off and do 7 or 5 for that whole week?
Oh, you can definitely, you could mail one a day, or you know what? If you miss a couple days, why don't we just say you can do 3 in one day if you want, or 4. But the point is, at the end of 30 days, we will each have sent 30 thank you notes.
Okay. Does it always have to go in the mail? Or, like, if there's somebody at work that I want to give a thank you card to, can I just hand it to them? Or do I have to mail it to their home?
I feel like it's a nice surprise. I don't think you have to mail it, but, like, if they're somewhere at work where you're not there, but, like, you put it on their desk or something,
maybe
right?
Okay. All right. That's cool. I like that.
The surprise element is kind of a cool part of it. So
okay, so the number one rule, what I'm hearing here is it has to be a card or some sort of tangible form. I can't just walk up and high five and say, "Hey, thank you. I really appreciate you. Okay, have a good day." No, it's got to be something tangible.
Yeah, you have to express your feelings in the written word.
Okay. All right, I'm in.
All right, man. All right, so starting tomorrow, the first thank you note is tomorrow.
What? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I have to go to the store today and get some thank you cards. And awesome. Well, I guess thank you cards come with envelopes, so I need thank you cards and some stamps.
Some stamps.
Oh, right. And some addresses. Dude, I don't even know my mom's address. Like, so... I've got some work to do.
Good luck with that. Yeah, it's funny because every time someone texts you and asks for your address, don't you just assume they're getting married? Like,
yeah, totally.
So you're gonna send texts to
congratulations.
friends, and they're gonna be like, "Hey, are you getting married?"
Yeah, that good point. I want to send an announcement. That's funny. So just for the sake of recap, sorry. 3 steps to actively bust your funk. Number 1, be thankful. So spend a little bit of time reflecting and being aware of what's going on in your life. Number 2, write it down physically, tangibly. Put some ink to paper. Write it down. And number 3, take action. Do something with that gratitude. Mail a note, make a phone call, do something, give a gift. Take action on what you're thankful for.
And before we go, I want to encourage anyone out there to take part in Don't Forget the Crew. And if you want, also, we'd love to have people joining us in our challenge this month of 1 thank you card every day for a month.
Yep, I'm with you. And I would encourage our listeners who maybe feel like that's overwhelming or maybe can't afford 30 different stamps. That's okay. But do something that you've never done before. So maybe the challenge or commitment that you make is 1 thank you card a week. Do something different and create a good habit of expressing gratitude. I think we'll all be surprised at how happy we are, how life gets better simply because we're being aware and we're expressing that gratitude.
I love it. Good stuff. All right, well, I think we'll leave it there for now. And thanks for an awesome conversation, Sean. And I will see you next time.
Sounds good. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for joining us on episode 33.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Find us online at twodisableddudes.com. And please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts.
We'd like to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Special thanks to our audio producer, Jake Tompkins, who also composed the music.
Until next time, keep living with urgency.